I will call to order the Danville Board of Education regular meeting for October 23rd, 2017. Welcome to everyone that's here tonight. Before we get started, I just want to send the apologies from both Lori Finke and Troy McCowan. They both had work responsibilities this evening, so they are sorry they had to miss. So we will start out with the first item on the agenda, which is to approve the meeting agenda.
I move that we approve the meeting agenda as presented.
Second.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
sorry, we need to add item 5D concerning, we're going to be able to do credit cards now on our tax payments. So those who like to get frequent flyer miles and those kind of good things can do that now. So we need to add that to the agenda under reports 5 and 5D.
Do you need it read the way it's written in the minutes?
Okay. Do you want it now? Okay. And so we're amending the agenda to add a service fee of 2% if above $60 or $1.50 if it's under $60 for accepting credit card, debit card, bank drafts for payments of property taxes. So that will be added to the agenda.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes. Okay, and then we will move on down to the presentations. Are there any board member comments this evening? All right, Dr. Phillip.
I want to mention a few things. One, the smell of paint that you are experiencing is based upon some upgrades to this room as we are about to host the Bearing Witness exhibit. This is in cooperation with the Kentucky Center for the Arts and a series of other institutions that help raise awareness based upon artwork and interpretations from the Holocaust. So this will be a site for the region to come and experience, and we'll be here beginning November. Jane, help me fill the date.
15th.
15th through the
30th.
To the 30th. And there will be evening viewings and time for the public to come as well.
There will be a public reception on the 15th. I'm sorry, public reception on the 15th from 5:30 to 8. And then I'm certainly open to other public viewing. People can contact me if there's a group or individuals who would like to come see.
We'll do some other promotion for that, but we're pretty excited to be selected as a host and welcome the opportunity to share the stories that will be presented. I want to take the opportunity as well to congratulate our football team that just finished an undefeated regular season for the first time since '94. So that's always a cool thing, and we'll be picking up more district play here shortly. Also want to acknowledge our middle school. They have a team currently at the International Association for K-12 Online Learning. This is the largest national conference, international actually, regarding online learning, with having exploring and implementing one-to-one computing this year. We think it's important to invest in the professional development around teachers for those initiatives. We also know that initiative will be expanding, and so we don't have real dates for that yet, but we've also sent representation from the high school, because once you give an 8th grader a device, it's not like they're going to want to leave it behind in the summer between 8th and 9th grade year. So we're looking to see how that would expand, and the board will be considering options for that moving forward too. So both academics and athletics always are a priority at the Danville schools, and we're happy now to start celebrating what our students have done.
Okay, so this time we'll move on to student recognition. Let's see, Ms. Carver, is going to be handling some debate. Recognitions, come on up.
I would like to recognize a few of our students this evening. As Dr. Luke mentioned, debate has gone 1-to-1 this year, which means that our students, each day as they come in, they each have their own Chromebook. Some of the students, about 75% of them, take the Chromebook home and keep it, they keep it. And then 25% of them, about 115 students, they turn their Chromebooks in each morning. They get them each morning and turn them in each afternoon. Now, the 4 students that I'm going to be recognizing are very helpful every day in helping to distribute the books back out, the Chromebooks back out to the students, and also in helping with repairs, keeping track of them, answering questions, and all of those things. So at this time, I would like for these guys to come up. Naomi Israel, come on up. Just stay right up here and we'll get a picture of all you guys together. Ollie Helmers. And Jack Simpson. And our other student that works with Mr. Smith daily, Brady Bischoff, is not here this evening.
So the board had a presentation from the middle school work session a week ago around this initiative, and our implementation we're now allowed to say it out loud, has gone better than any one we have ever heard of anywhere. And that's based largely upon these students who start each day making sure that students have the tools that they need, that they function, that they work. If there's a problem, the idea of downtime doesn't exist. Mr. Gover's been bragging about it to everybody that he knows, because really when you have it from student run for students, it's what we hope that every high school business class would look like as far as what we've been able to do at the middle. So congratulations, guys. It's been cool to see. Dr. Murray?
All right, so we have a few different people to recognize tonight. We'll start off with one of our students, Elizabeth Nesmith. I have not had the privilege of getting to know her because I'm brand new to the school district, and I deal a lot with discipline. She's one of our high flyer students, so she doesn't get a personal interaction with me very often. But her academic accolades speak for themselves. Her recognition as a National Merit semifinalist is truly something for her family, and Danville schools to be very proud of. And based on what I've learned about Elizabeth, she is a strong, caring young woman who is very much an independent thinker. We are proud of the young woman she has become so far and look forward to seeing where she goes and what great things she does in the years to come. So Elizabeth Nesmith is our National Merit semifinalist.
So the person that I wanted to recognize tonight couldn't join us. It's Dr. Matthew Graves for all of his volunteer work that he does with us in athletics. Probably been doing about 8 or 10 years, I would guess. Doesn't miss a home football game. Is always just a phone call away for me anytime that I need anything for our student athletes. Sometimes that doesn't just necessarily include medical care. He goes above and beyond for anything that we might need for our student athletes, and really for any kid that we would have in the district as well. He traveled this weekend to the Naval Academy to visit his oldest son and didn't get back in time tonight. He thought he might be able to, but he didn't. So I may revisit this again when he can actually be with us.
And we are very pleased that Danville High School has decided to recognize a student for academics, a student or a volunteer for athletics, and a student in the arts. And I'd like Ms. Stinnett to come up and join me for our arts student presentation.
Good evening. Ms. Dewey gave me the opportunity to recognize a special student in the arts, and it was not actually a very hard choice this year because I have a student in particular, Morgan. And she last year completed the pathway in graphic design, InDesign, and Photoshop, which is remarkably hard to complete. So usually people, it's under the assumption if you're a visual artist, well, of course you'd be good at graphic design. That's actually a very unusual characteristic. Usually you'll have one person who's really good at drawing, and they'll all come to you and say, I need help in this. She is extremely talented in visual arts and in graphic design, and I think that's going to make her a very marketable and very successful person, but her passion for graphic design is amazing, and I'm very proud of her.
And we'd like to add that Morgan is currently assisting an elementary school teacher at Hogshead Elementary School, and in fact, Mrs. Brady said today, I don't know how I've done it without her all these years, and she also designs our production posters for our Danville High School plays, so we are very proud of Morgan.
all those recognitions and congratulations. I'm sorry some of those students missed out, but I know they're all very busy. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the personnel notifications. For review only. Anybody have any questions? All right. And moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting. I make a motion to approve of the September 11th, September 18th, September 28th, 2017 meeting minutes as submitted.
Second.
All right. Any questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, and we will move on to the reports, the first being the staffing report.
As you will notice on the staffing report, we are looking to add one assistant in our FMD unit at Jenny Raptors based upon numbers in need.
Did we not approve that last week?
Yes.
I think we did. Which was?
At the work session.
Was it on there? Yes, we did, because we decided to go ahead and do it early to get it in because
Get
of
the
the
new
needs.
place.
Right.
But that's correct, I forgot about that, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just get it on the agenda and make sure.
Okay, but we don't need to do another
No.
approval. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the finance report, Mr. Dean.
Okay, you've been given a copy of the financial statement for the month of September 2017. To begin the month, we had a balance of $6,170,874. For the month, we took in receipts of $1.478 million. Paid out in accounts payable or claims, $917,494. Payroll for the month of September was $1.292 million, so total expenditures of $2.209 million left us with a balance at the end of September of $5,439,532. You can kind of look. You can look over to the right-hand column and see the comparison of where we are this September as opposed to the same time last month. We're up about $400,000. As you go down the line, you can see the reconciliation of the outstanding checks. And then below that, in the middle, is a breakdown of the balance by funds, all the way from the general fund to the other funds that we maintain down through food service. You can see the balances as they exist for the end of September. And also a comparison of where they are this year as opposed to the same time last year. Down below, we keep a running total of our investment account for the certificate of deposit at Tolliver, for the Tolliver Elementary project. For the month of September, we paid out $556,000, a little over $556,000. Also, I've got October on there. The total was $526,000. So, as of right now, we've paid out a total of $11.821 million, leaving us with a remaining balance of just under $2.5 million on the construction CD. On the right-hand column, you'll see the summary of the interest that has been earned to date. Through the end of September, we've earned a total of $102,778, which is gone back into the construction fund. Second page of the Treasurer's report is a receipts summary for the general fund. You can look down through there and see by category what was taken in during the month of September from PSC property taxes, our SEEK, other items, motor vehicle taxes, utility taxes down the line. And in the second column is the year-to-date, what we have. Then there's the budget and the available budget left. And also as a comparison, you can look at the next to last column and see where we were last year to date at this time and compare it to this year. Then on the second page is the same thing, only a breakdown of the expenditures for the month, the year to date, and then also last year as compared to the yearly budget for this year. At the bottom you can see we had a total general fund cash balance of $4.209 million. Of that, $200,000 is set aside for sick leave escrow, and then we've got the $1 million that we set aside for maintenance projects, which we are working on getting underway now, leaving a general fund balance of $3,009,012.26. Any questions?
I make a motion to approve the financial report as submitted.
Second.
All right, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right.
Paul, can you walk us through the 5D and what we just added to the agenda?
Got to do the invoices.
Oh, I apologize for
One
jumping
more.
in.
On the invoice side, payment, the accounts payable that we paid this time, total as we presented before, $917,493.92. As we walked through during the working session, $562,000 of that $917,000 was for the Tolliver renovation and construction project we paid out for the month of September. We also had a small payout of $974 on the high school roof as that project is wrapping up. So it's a few other items that we talked about. $2,700 for an asbestos inspection. We paid out $19,963 for stepping stones for Jenny Rogers and Hogsett. We also purchased some additional Chromebooks at the elementary level for $14,791, and then a couple of scoreboards for John W. Baker Middle School at $6,119. All in all, it left $354,000 left, which was our routine repairs and maintenance, food service, transportation, fuel, things like that, routine expenses for the month.
I've always been interested to know how much it costs the district to put the advertisement in the paper concerning our finances. And so I see it's about, what, $2,200 for that one shot?
This time. It went up a little bit from the previous year, but it's about $2,200. I wish the legislature would do something about that where we could just post it on our website and people could go see it, save us a little bit of money, but that hasn't come about yet.
As long as I can remember, that's been an item in every General Assembly.
And all the finance directors have tried to get something done on that. It's just nothing's happened.
Okay, thanks. Like I said, I just wondered what we were paying now.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the payment of invoices totaling $917,493.92 as presented.
Second.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we can move on to 5D.
Okay, at the working session, Mr. Becker had inquired about the possibility of us accepting credit card payments for property taxes, so I did some investigation. Ended up talking to the sheriff's office, and they use a vendor called Gov Teller, and after more investigation and talking to the people, found out what the cost would be as opposed to, I've looked at other vendors as well, and this seems to be the best option as far as the cost for us and the cost for our taxpayers if they wish to use this. This is in no way telling them that they have to, but if they would like to, we've had some people that have requested the ability to use a debit card or a credit card to pay their taxes. We just have not had that option. So after the investigation, we've come up with a company called Gov Teller, and what it will cost us is approximately $90 for a card reader, which we will attach to a computer and house in our tax office. Most of the bulk of the cost is passed on to the people that wish to use the service. What they charge is 2.5% of any tax payment that's over $60. So if you're looking at, $1,500 as a tax payment, you're looking at probably another $37.50 on top of that. So a lot of people, in order to accumulate points on their credit card, would be willing to accept that, so we're going to offer that. They can call us if they want to use the credit or debit card, and also they would be able to use a draft out of their bank account if they so desire. And the way we will set this up is there will be a place on our website, there'll be a button that they can click, and it will take them to a secure location where they can either input their credit card information, a debit card, or they can put their bank account information and have that amount taken out of their account and directed to us. We do not touch the 2.5%. That is something that goes directly to the vendor, and so we will not have any responsibility for that. All we will do is directly receive the tax payment. So, like I said, anything above $60 will be 2.5%. Anything below 60 will be a flat $1.50 fee. So we'll try to get this out there so people will know about it. We've already started having people, since tax bills were sent out on the 16th, we've already had people come in. I bet we've probably had close to $200,000 already taken in tax receipts for the month of October so far. So people are coming in, and so now I think if we can advertise and give them this option, a lot of people will take advantage of that, being able to pay and accumulate points for their card.
Will it email a receipt to them?
Not sure about that yet.
Okay.
I do know that they can come into the office. We will have a dedicated computer. We can swipe that card if they desire, or they can do it themselves, or they could actually do it over the phone if they like. We'll
And
give
the
them all
fees-
the options.
And just to clarify, it is 2.5% or?
2.5% of the tax payment.
Okay. Because I think when we added it to the agenda, we read
We had
2%.
It's
So
2.5.
it's 2.5.
Anything over $60.
How soon is it going to be in effect? Is it
As soon as I can get the company to get it set up.
okay.
And
And
then once, I thought what we would do is once we have that to where it's operational, I'll try to get Kendra to do an article in the paper to let people know if they so desire they can do that. And then once they come in, we'll let them know that.
right. Even if there's something on the website, I guess, or just some other places we can put that out there so folks will know.
Yes.
All right.
So basically, what I would like you to do is approve the service fee, since the board has to approve all fees.
Okay.
So Paul, let me ask you about the Gov Teller. Is that just a one-time, I mean, if we decided you find somebody else that charges less or whatever, we're not committed to these folks for?
No.
Okay.
We will use them for this tax season, and then if we can find somebody else that would do it better, then we will so do so.
Okay. All right. So I make the motion that we add to our services of taxes, our payment of taxes, credit card, debit card, or bank drafts can also be used for payment of property taxes with a service fee of 2.5% if above $60 or $1.50 under $60.
Second. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.
All right, so now we will move on to facilities and the Tolliver change orders.
Good evening.
Hey, Eric.
We had a progress meeting last week. Brian was in attendance, and the good news is we look like we're a month ahead of schedule. So I think starting in early November, or mid-November, we're going to be able to start moving in. It all really depends on the delivery of furniture that Brian and Christy are working on. No?
As of right now, it's a no.
Okay. But it sounds like right before Thanksgiving, the move into the second floor and the gym will all be ready. So I don't know if anyone's poked their head in that gym yet, but
Yes,
man.
we got some, Ed McKinney sent us some
Okay.
pictures and it looks fantastic.
Yes,
So,
it does.
I've heard
Yes.
from several Tolliver teachers as well.
Yeah, it looks great.
Everyone's
So,
itching to get in there, so.
yes.
Okay. So, as usual, with any renovation on this old building, there's
Yeah.
always seems to be something that we discovered along the way. So, the first change order I have in front of you is number 30. And this is a big one because I think we talked about this. This is for the column replacement up front. This is for replacing those 4 wood columns with 4 fiberglass columns and also replacing the capitals on top of that. So that change order is $207,583.71. I did talk to KDE, and because one of the columns has kind of collapsed, or considering this an emergency order, so we've already talked to them about that situation. So that's number 30. Any questions with that one?
So what's timeline?
That's a good question. I think Griggs wants to order it. It's probably, in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 weeks to get those things on order, and so then delivered. So definitely by springtime, and then it's kind of the whole goal is kind of wrap this thing up as we're as May comes along, and we're finishing up with all the construction finishing, the exterior improvements, because next month I'll bring in the exterior painting renovations too. Griggs is working on that number. It took me a little bit to get a lead abatement specification for that spec. So that's just recently got to Griggs to get them pricing, but they've kind of been working on it already, because I kind of gave them a draft of that. So change order number 31. This again is kind of those miscellaneous items that have come up. One of them is tuck pointing on the south gable. As you remember, months ago we had it on the north end, but I guess one of the big rains that we had recently that came out of the east really exposed the need to tuck point that little bit of gable that's up on top of the original building, because it started leaking in on the 3rd floor. They started noticing some wet ceiling tiles, and so we're going back up there and making that. And that's the one that's been painted on the south side. This is, so it's again some of the work. We also added a second scoreboard rough-in in the gym. We noticed that was, we had that one old scoreboard that's on the east wall. We added that. Well, let's go ahead and add one on the west wall, so when you're done painting that scoreboard, you can add 2 and be symmetrical. So make it that much nicer. And then the last one on this one is a revised exhaust louver. When we got into the gym area, we were about ready to make some wall modifications to fit this one louver in, and we discovered that the concrete beam that's up against the ceiling was not bearing on the adjacent wall, it was just bearing on that wall. And so this was kind of going to the corner, so we couldn't modify that wall and enlarge that opening a little bit, so we had to adjust the size. And that they'd already had the louver on order from the original order back last year. So we had to make a modification to that size due to some structural constraints on that louver. And then change order number 32. I grouped this one just kind of all specifically with dealing with the gym and the wood floor, some other issues that have come up when lost the name. Martin Floor, thank you. Came out and started looking at it. There's some wood repairs that they need to make in one corner. That was up in the northwest corner, and that's also in the southwest corner. There was a patch of VCT tile that was left over from when that was next to your door. Now is the time to go ahead and replace those, so they made that patch over there. There was one wood transition transom that we wanted to make at one of the new openings. But the bigger item was the moisture issue that was in the floor of that crawl space. There was a lot of moisture that was coming up through the dirt floor. So he recommended putting down a vapor barrier under that, but also because of timing there was so much moisture in the wood was cupping, is they added some temporary heat to dry out that wood in the space to get it down, the moisture inside that wood to an area where they could sand it and it wouldn't come back and cup. So that's kind of dealt with this change order, kind of left it alone since it was dealing with this one issue of getting that wood floor repaired. So you had previously approved the one just to refinish it. This is all a lot of the stuff that came up last minute in order to get that wood floor done. So, and that total was $13,299.75. So any questions with those change orders?
Just so as I read through these, so with that last one, where that leaves the contingency balance is $127,193.
Right.
Sound right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so again, when we come back next month, or if you have a special meeting before, then I'll hopefully have that next one ready. So we'll have to get with Paul in terms of how to get that financing working, because we'll probably start getting into a negative balance on that, because we still got the first floor, but as I keep saying, the window gets narrower and narrower out of the site, out of the second floor, and the second floor was already looking nice. It's going to be a little bit different than the third, so it's got its own special touches. So
Can't wait to see it.
You may want to share with them what the visitor said about the seamless from the new to the old.
Oh, I think a couple of people from Bergen Independent came down the other week with Ron Merle, and he toured it for the first time in a couple of months. And they were walking through the, the addition and also into the renovation area, and Ron just kind of had to stop and so, did you notice where the transition happened? He goes, no. So,
Nice.
and he said, started pointing out some of the details in there, so they were very impressed by what you guys have done, and in fact, they probably want to do a lot of the same thing, so it's really more renovation to their schools.
Yeah, I heard from a couple of their board members, and they obviously got the information come back to them, and they want to come see the school too, so, yeah.
Well, I guess the Plant Managers Association meeting the other week, it was starting to make some rounds, a couple of people were starting to talk about what you guys have been doing with Oliver, so it's starting to make headlines, so.
Glad to show it off. So
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion for the approval of the Tolliver change orders 30, number 30, and 31, number 32, as submitted.
So,
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. And now on to Hogsett.
All right. We took the feedback from folks at the work session, talked to a number of staff members as well to hear from that process, and then had a good conversation with Studio Kramer on Friday, and then Anna Matter here today doing measurements, and we met today with principals, facilities, technology, special education, preschool to go through a lot of those pieces as well. One, we reinforce the fact that schematic design is establishing the footprint of the facility. Walls inside, so forth, will still be able to move left, right, up, down, doors can come up, windows can go down, so forth. This is schematic design, making sure that we know what the square footage of the facility will be. So looking at feedback from the work session, conversations today, conversations Friday, this gives you a rough, the next iteration is what that may look like. It is a fairly significant increase over what was originally discussed, which allows still for expansion and still takes into account what our enrollment needs will be. So we know that we're going to need 3 preschool classrooms, 6 kindergarten classrooms, 6 first grade classrooms in order to handle our enrollment, even with a little bit of expansion. That is what is required of us to make sure that we can run school. What we've done here is add a little bit additional space. One of the preschools, you see a flex room there. Again, not really designated, because again, schematic design is really more about the overall footprint, but you want to see a little bit what's in it. So you see some flex space in the preschool, and you see almost, 4 flex rooms in the rest of the building that ultimately could be used should there be class sizes to increase. Should we decide in the design development phase, we want a dedicated art room, or a dedicated music room, or a dedicated whatever, that square footage is built into the schematic design. You notice that the kindergarten classrooms and the preschool classrooms are the largest classrooms because the younger kids, as we get older, we want to have as much space in there for them to be able to maximize their movement, which was a lot of real priority, came out of all of our focus groups. And the first grade classrooms essentially fit within the first grade class, or the classrooms that are currently existing, which is again a bit of a cost savings measure, but still rooms at the same size or larger than our other 2 elementary schools. So all, what's the word I'm looking for, of appropriate and equal scale might be what I'm trying to get to. There is still a great deal of fun to be had in determining where walls go, how things move, and so forth. But again, for the board, this is a chance to look at what that overall footprint would be, which is again the preschool addition at the bottom. And then you see the western addition, which at this point in time is penciled in eventually for Frisky and for guidance, but also can really be, those words can be deleted and added as we see fit. And that's what really the next phase would be. With you guys, I've emailed and let you know that we've got time set aside on Friday if the board would like to continue the conversation in order to be able to get to a point where we're comfortable approving schematic design. And that can either be done tonight, or we can decide if there's some questions here. We got Matt in here, would be happy to answer and walk us through the rest of the details I probably have overlooked if we wanted to approve this evening. We will need to note this is going to be at a greater expense than what we originally had allocated. We've talked to Paul, and we do have a little more headroom in our bonding process. And so we may want to, we can either approve it, we can decide, let's get a pencil number and then approve, depending upon how you want to move forward. But Anna and Matt have been great about meeting with us and taking a lot of feedback and building in, I think, what we've got to where everyone left today very happy with what they felt was the capacity of the facility.
So what is this square footage?
I don't know.
Do y'all know?
Not right off with the two additions, no.
It's approximately, it's about 8,000 square feet for the preschools and approximately like 3,000, I think, for that, what we're showing on that west end.
And the reason the don't know is we met this afternoon, conversations went well. We all scrambled back to my office and pulled up the designs on software to try and get you something that looks like this, so there may be a few more I don't knows, and that's where we got more time for discussion, but wanted to get it in your hands as quickly as we could.
One of the things that Andrea had brought up was her concern with the other entrance to preschool, just as far as security, and then if a parent wants to check out a preschooler, having to, the logistics of that. So was that addressed in the meeting, and Andrea felt good about what?
Yes.
So will preschool have its own checkout, check-in, and checkout
Again, that would be more in the design development phase.
as we get to that?
Generally, no, but a lot of it will depend upon too, as we look at staffing. If we have, in our conversion of staff, as we're not doing any reductions in force, we might be able to create that. So there's no reason for us to say a definite no, but structurally having multiple points of pickup and drop off, which is true in many cases, is different than where you decide folks to interact during the school day. Just like buses drop off by the kitchen, doesn't mean that we always do that, because that's just where the traffic flows best. This helps us move people through in the mornings and the afternoons, but families still know during the day you come to the main office. They don't go through the kitchen if they drop the kid off there.
So, sorry, no, I was just going to say, obviously, if we think there's going to be additional cost, I think that's something we definitely need to see how much we're looking at, because that was kind of one of the big things, even with Tolliver, obviously, that just kind of, as we went on, it just ended up being more than anticipated. And
That's right.
So I think that's definitely something we need to look at and consider.
And that's something we can put together ahead of a Friday meeting if you'd like to.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. I think that's definitely something we'll need before we can move forward, I think.
Well, realizing all the districts that are doing things, the cost have been really hard to be able to say, we're going to be at this number, because everybody's anticipating the prevailing wage is going to save you tons of money, but that's just not happening right now. That may not happen for 4 or 5 years. So, to do the ballpark is good, but it's also kind of on your part probably would make you a little nervous, because you don't know where folks are going to land on that. So, but an idea would be nice.
But we could go off of estimates of projects that we've recently bid and kind of work off of that with square footage numbers and provide an estimate from that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that
Because if you're looking at this plan, the Plan West, incorporates a lot more renovation for the kindergarten, where the plan on the east is the existing classrooms, so that saves you a little bit of money
sure.
than going in and renovating those rooms completely.
Yeah, and just to touch quickly on the preschool entrance, I think one of the things that we're trying to look at with this plan and thinking about future growth is, that there's a way that the school operates now, but making sure within the design that we are giving you guys that kind of elbow room and space you need. If that entrance ultimately doesn't work, then you don't have to use it as a primary preschool entrance, but understanding that there is an issue right now with pickup and drop off, that a first grader needs a different level of care getting in and out of a car than a 4-year-old that has to be lifted and put into a car seat. And so trying to be like, okay, well, we know this might be an issue. Here's a potential solution for how to deal with some congestion that can happen once we start adding a lot more preschool students to this campus.
So if you're comfortable with the footprint, if you feel like this reflects the questions and concerns that you have, and knowing that the group that met today feels pretty good about it, then we can have them go back, sharpen pencils, bring us back some numbers, then to look at a little more thoroughly. It will eventually take board action to have it approved schematic design, which could be a special call meeting on Friday to go ahead and wrap it up all of them. If we would need 3 folks, and it looks like there are 3 volunteers sitting up here in the front. Or we would need to adjust the overall calendar just to make sure that the rest of our dates fall in line.
Yeah, I can. Probably easier in the afternoon, but I can, whatever, I can make it
Studio Kramer's available anytime on Friday, so if y'all want to identify a time, and we can put 3 folks and do a special call. Or you can wait and just have some feedback and pick a different time. Following week and just do it early then.
I would have between 1 and 2 and after 4 o'clock. Is that my time, between 1 and 2?
It's up to you guys. We've got fairly good consensus on this, knowing again that if we can make the funding available, it's more about the kind of time that y'all want to be able to have to really process it and see from there.
We should have time to rework some of those numbers ahead of time, not just give them to you on Friday.
So we
Give
can
you time
have
to review it.
A little bit early.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's something to say that we couldn't do it Monday or Tuesday either. It's just that we want to try and wrap this up in October.
When is Lauren then? She's not back until this weekend. I know she would really like to have some input on this as well, so I'm going to wait until I can do it early next week.
Is she even back this weekend?
Yeah, I didn't think she was back even until Sunday or
I
Monday.
thought it was Wednesday.
Yeah, it might be Wednesday too.
I'll find out. I can't remember. I'll be glad to text her.
Well, we do this. You guys will hold Friday, and tomorrow we'll let you know, if you don't mind, as to whether or not we can actually continue with Friday or we can move a day in the next week.
We can do that.
So we can maybe do it Tuesday. Are you here, Steve? You don't know. Maybe, who knows?
No, I can be, so.
So we think she's back Monday, so we think maybe Tuesday.
Okay, so definitely not Friday. I can go ahead and tell them to release Friday on their schedule.
Is that?
Yeah, I'd like to involve her and Steve Troy, I mean, give him the opportunity as well, so.
Okay.
So yeah, so let's.
So we'll look for potentially a special call meeting on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
If you guys check schedules and see if there's a time that works for you all, and I'll try and match up.
Just let us know and then.
And then can this be emailed to Lori and Troy in the meantime?
Yep.
That would be good.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yeah, I feel a little better to have everybody on board.
That works.
In the decision, so.
Thanks for your help today,
Thank
guys.
you
Really
very
appreciate it.
much. We appreciate it. Okay, so moving on to the property sale.
Vince, do you want to walk folks through this one? We'd like for me to.
Either way, how y'all doing it? Oh, no.
So with the property sale, there's 2 pieces that have to occur. One is that the board needs to approve the sale. And originally, you'll see in e-meeting, the motion was set to be contingent upon approval by the Quebec Department of Education, because they have to do the sale too, which they approved this morning. So this came out before, them, which is why it's worded that way. So the contingency is already done. And then there's another statement that must be issued, which is what you helped us write. Tell me what this is.
This is, each of you have a copy. This is just a proposed board order, in essence, a resolution for school board to approve, and it's the main thing is doing this setting, when you see this language talking about setting a minimum acceptable price of $20,000, that was the appraised value. So there are 3 options for how this is processed. One is an absolute auction, which we're obviously not doing. Second one is sealed bids, which we're not doing. And the third is this approach based on a minimum acceptable price. So the floor is set at 20, because that's what the appraisal is. So this is setting that floor, and then it's also approving the contract you reviewed last week with the city for $22,500. It's declaring that this property is surplus to the needs of the school district, so the school district's not going to be impaired by not having the property. And then it's authorizing Dr. Look to sign the contract of sale on behalf of the school board. So those, and I don't know if we have a board order. I've got a blank for the number. I don't know if we have a number yet, but this is in essence your resolution approving those. What we do, the approval we got from KDE today was contingent upon this. So, if you approve this tonight, we email it to them tomorrow. They'll send us a second letter, which is sort of the final approval, and then we're ready to move.
So the motion that we have is going to cover.
It would cover all that, and then, my recommendation at this point would be you and Dr. Luke would sign this, and then he would sign the contract tonight, and then I think the city may be considering it tonight as well.
Okay.
So we can make the motion, pull off the contingency, right?
I think really all you need to do at this point is to approve the board
Actual
order.
sale.
And if you want to, the board order approves the proposed contract, so really you just need to adopt this board order just before you.
So do we need a substitute motion in this one, Vincent? Okay. So we need to make a substitute motion to approve the board order allowing the sale of the Danville Schools property to the city of Danville for a price of $22,500. That cover you?
Teresa, do you know what the number will be for this board
I
order?
won't know until tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'd like to do a substitute motion on the approval of the board order allowing the sale of Danville Schools property to the city of Danville for the price of $22,500.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, and we will move on to number 8, volunteers.
So what's up first is a revision to our volunteer policy. Mr. Davis has been doing some research into it.
No volunteer. Has been. In Ms. Osmond's absence last week, we needed to revise our board policy on volunteers. And I submitted our current policy to KSBA. Janet Jeans, our consultant, took a look at it. She came back and said there's some language probably needed to be changed in there based on the memo I never saw. So, and I was here when it was sent, but just didn't get it. Anyway, you have a markup, I think, where I have a volunteer policy as it is now. The way it will look after it's approved by the board in November. And then the markup of what is actually was stricken from the policy and what was added. It was done after considerable discussion with every party, Dr. Luke, Mr. Pennington, and so the second page is how I will read. And we want to be sure that it was in concert with the work that Mr. Cornett was doing with the revision of volunteer handbook. So I think we've got a good match on everything. So it's just the first reading, so no action necessary tonight. If you have any questions, you can email me.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Okay, number 9 is our response to the original. Oh, excuse me, AP, sorry. Skipping ahead. So the actual handbook, volunteer handbook.
It is. Obviously, it's a joint thing between, that we have discussed. I had it's called a quick committee together to look at our current volunteer handbook, which had been kind of piecemeal together for the last, one person even said way before they even had yet arrived to the district. And so in terms of formatting, font, but most of all, what was inside of it. Like, for example, we added, as you can see, what are some specific things that will prevent you from being a volunteer? And that was some recommendations from KSBA. We looked at about 3 other policies of districts that were like our size and that had close to the number of volunteers that we have, between 400 and 500 currently. And so we added that, and just some things about, these are some opportunities you have to volunteer. These are some examples, these are some choices. We wanted to clarify the language that you must give the principals not only okay, but their signature to say that, for example, Wes Cornett was a volunteer at Paul Elementary. Mr. Ballard must approve me being in his building before I can go through the process and become a Danville Independent School volunteer. We thought that was very important, and that they needed to know who's going to be in their building, who's going to be around their students, etc. Committee felt good about it. Ms. Fisher gave some very good information about athletics that we felt was not in the other one, that needed to be in this one. That's where, I won't say a majority, but a lot of our volunteers come through that area of our school district. Other than that, obviously, it's going to be somewhat contingent upon the current policy that Mr. Davis and Mr. McAfee worked on, and what they have added together with their expertise and being here obviously many years. Obviously, it boils down to protection of our students. That's what any volunteer policy is. And we went back and forth on some things. Actually, the whole committee did, Dr. Look, about, well, what about this? And then we go back, well, how much does it protect our students? You know, if someone's going to come in and make copies, you know, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they may not be necessarily around students, but they're still going to be in a school building. And just little things like that, you know, we were nickel and diamond, but we felt we needed to, because we're dealing with the lives of young people and making sure they're safe in all areas. I'll entertain any questions if you have it in front of you.
The background checks that are going to be required, where are they? Who's that through? Is that through the state?
Well, there's different areas, Mr. Becker, there, and we have two. If you look at the second, third to last page, maybe second to last page, we have two levels of background checks. We have a AOC, Administrative Office of Courts background check. That's, for the most part, a statewide background check only. And then we have both a KSP/federal FBI background check that is done on all of those. That's what you would call normally a quote certified background check. But in this case, if you are going to be direct contact with a student of any type, meaning you're chaperoning the senior trip, you're chaperoning a direct chaperone pumpkin patch, obviously up to including a paraprofessional coach. That is the latter background check. There are different costs, but with that said, the policy also says that we are now going to incur all volunteer background check costs. And with Mr. Dean's stuff, it may be $2,500, maybe what we're looking at is costing us. So.
And what's the frequency?
Frequency of?
Is it just a one-time and you're done?
Every 5 years, and so that's going to include anywhere from what you all may do with your children in school up to including a center college student that may be working over there 4 or 5 years in school. So that's why we went with a straight 5-year that we would include as their length of time that they would be okay to do. So it's a lot of hands, a lot of eyes, which is what we want to do.
All right, so this one we can go ahead and approve tonight.
Yes, and which would be contingent upon the second reading of the policy. So if you get to the first, so our November work session will be the second reading of that policy. If the policy still looks good, then all this goes through. But if for some reason between now and then you've got issues with the policy revisions that would need to be in compliance with state statute, then that would not give this a full approval.
So should we just wait on this until the policy?
Yeah, because we've got to do 2 readings anyways, correct?
Not for the handbook, you don't. 2 readings of the policy.
Policies to do.
Basically, I was trying to expedite some of our bureaucratic matters for November, just because we've got some other stuff coming up. But obviously, it can wait until then the same way.
Well, so how are things being handled now? Because we have volunteers in the buildings.
We do, and right now they're under the old policy. They come, they pay their money, and they're being handled either by Ms. Fisher or by band director or whomever. Ultimately, the building principal's in charge of anybody in their building, but it's being done under the old policy right now.
So are they gonna be considered to be grandfathered in at this point?
They
Or are we
will.
gonna,
After
until the end of the school year?
Mhm.
Okay, or not when, like if this takes effect next month?
Any new volunteers?
They will
Any
not
new
have to go
volunteers
through any
moving
type of new
forward?
fingerprinting or nothing.
Yeah, because of the fact of the day.
But, we have some people that they want to, I mentioned the senior trip a while ago, I don't know if they're going to take 1 year or not, but that may happen in March or April. They will be under this new policy. For the planetarium in February or whatever it may be.
So do we actually know every volunteer that comes into this Danville School District?
That's going to be one of our, Teresa and I had this conversation, that's going to be, and Mr. Davis and I had a very good conversation about it today. That's our goal, because to answer your question right now, I don't know the answer to that. If we do, I want to say yes, we do. I want to say yes somewhere that whomever they're going to be with or under in that school or that program, yes. But we want to have a list, a master list. We want to know that West Cornell volunteered as an assistant coach in girls high school basketball and girls middle school and field trips with his second child. That's what.
There are some districts that have volunteer badges. So when they're in the buildings, it's named Steve Becker volunteer, very specific. And required to have the badge, otherwise they can't volunteer that day. So.
And with our badge maker, with what Audrey does, that could be very easily achieved.
So basically, anybody that's involved at this point would be grandfathered until the end of this school year, is that correct? Is that what we're looking at, or end of?
No, they will be within the 5 years. I mean,
There's already, because most of them, if I'm not mistaken, they've still had to do the background
Right,
checks.
it's not like we've not been doing this. This is an update. This is not starting from scratch.
So
We've been doing
say
background checks.
Someone has a background check 2 years ago, they still have the 3 years
Right.
until they have to.
We've got all those on file. We have all those dates. We have all those names. So,
Right.
yes, we have a list of everyone that we know to be volunteering. Is it possible that someone else showed up at a football practice to teach them a special technique? That's where we have to teach people the difference between having a guest speaker and having a volunteer.
I just want to look for the safety of the kids, but I also don't want to have our present volunteers that give their time to be discouraged to say, oh my gosh, you
It
know.
won't be.
Okay.
Well, speaking for athletics, I guess I can speak now, right? But speaking for athletics, I mean, I hope that, like Dr. Luke said, I hope that we know who all is there. And they've been through this process of background checks and things like that. So if you're worried about them being grandfathered in, I know you're not speaking of athletics, but I don't think this is really going to affect immediately on some of those things. But it's going to get things in line for us to make sure procedures are good and that we do know where people are.
Mr. Davis, I think the greater issue is that we were charging some folks who probably shouldn't have charged. And so that's why also we want this to take effect to make sure that we're fair to everybody involved. And by extending that window of time to 5 years, makes it a little more expedient for everybody involved.
Because what was it, before 3?
Roughly.
Yeah. So we
So
want to.
you can either pass it tonight contingent upon continuing looking at the policy, or you can wait and we'll put it on the work session.
I'm okay.
Yeah, it's fine, just, saying that it's contingent on.
Okay, I move that we approve the volunteer handbook as submitted contingent upon the approval of the updated board policy regarding volunteerism.
Second. All those in favor?
Uh,
All right, motion passes. All right. Now moving on to number 9. Mr. Cornett?
Okay. I think my first day here was July 3rd and probably July 5th or whenever it was, the next 2 or 3 days later. I began hearing about some questions and concerns from all parties involved, from our instructional coaches and our teachers and our administrators about our identification program for special needs students, what we would call Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3, RTI, for identification purposes. So I met with our school psychs, both Susans, and began asking them how are we doing it now. Their there's two parts to it. You have what is called a discrepancy model, and you have versus an RTI model. And in terms of identifying, one is very hard and fast. One is takes time and some looking at, fluency, durations. There that go on and on about psychometric words or phrases, but it's also, in my personal and professional opinion, what's best for students, and so the latter is. Call other districts, call other states. I mean, I learn more and never want to know about it, which is a good thing for me. So we began meeting with the coaches and other parties involved, and had requested they come up with some manuals that we can actually give to the teachers in a kindergarten class that is having some issues, learning issues with the student, to help the instructional coaches, to help the school psychs better evaluate that young man or that young girl on getting them identified or not identified as they may move into identification for special needs, or just simply further help in RTI, one of the 3 tiers of RTI. So with 2 or 3 months worth, we feel very, very good, better than any district I've ever been in, to be honest with you, about what you have in front of you for both the behavior identification and the academic identification. And so Susan Hayes, one of our two Susans in the school sites, really worked pretty hard on this. She kind of started with her master's program, I think, in school psych, and had really narrowed it down to what was going to be best for Danville School students. And we met with principals, we met with school, our coaches, our grade level meetings that was brought up when we met with them, and we felt very good about it. And so the board is required to approve this in terms of the policy and procedures under IDA, and that's where it'll go into our policy manual with that. And again, professionally speaking, I feel very, very good about it. Our teachers are going to be very appreciative because they're not reinventing anything. They're literally taking a sheet of paper out of the manual and doing no longer 30 or 45-minute fluency checks. It may only be 10 minutes or 8 minutes, what they're looking at or duration. That's going to be very, very good for both the teacher. Most of all, it's going to be good for the student because it's very individualized, and we're not dependent upon this discrepancy model that's, quote, universal, which we know is not good for students. It's universal. It's truly individualized, which is what all education should be, especially when you're dealing with a child that may have some disabilities. So I'll entertain any questions, but there's a lot of stuff in there, and I'm very, very proud of our school psych for working on this.
It was pretty interesting reading.
It is.
Some people would fall asleep doing this, but actually what I liked about it, it was very definitive. I mean, it is very definitive. And, there was a time that school districts didn't want to identify kids because of the cost. And,
And it's swung back and forth. There's been other times where they've been over-identified as well.
Over-identified, too. And some kids were identified that had no reason to be identified. So that's one thing, reading this, I got a lot out of this. There's actually a path now.
Yes, there is.
So we do need to approve these?
Make a motion for the approval of the academic intervention manual and the behavior intervention manual as
a part of the policies and procedures, yes.
a part of the policies and procedures.
I'll second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, I have a feeling number 10, we probably need to wait until we've got our other two folks here, so maybe that's something possibly we could do at our special call meeting, to get everybody there. What do you all think, number 10?
Well, as long as we're not under any particular time constraints.
Well, and I think that's even just finding another time for that discussion.
That was
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so then we will move on to the consent agenda.
I move we accept the following items for approval without discussion in the consent agenda. Items 11A through D.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, I think anybody is here for our reserved for the public, and there is no executive session this evening, is that right?